If you pay attention while thinking, you will see that our desires drive our thoughts. What we want, don't want, what we like and don't like. Since we want to live the way we want, it is natural for our thoughts to focus on what we want. Desires determine one's every step. In other words, a person is a collection of desires. Although many definitions of a human being exist, this can be considered a generalized statement. Everyone's personal experience confirms this idea. We are wrong even if we sometimes think we are going against our desires. A person can only go against a desire when another desire provokes it. So what is desire? Love. We focus on what we love. We strive for it. When we love an object, we want it. We also wish for the objects we need. Most unnecessary things people crave are not needed at all. As an outside observer, yes, we are telling the truth. But when we put ourselves in that person's shoes, we will see that we are wrong. We may not need our object of desire at first glance, but when we examine the reason for our passion and love, the picture will change 180 degrees. For example, I don't need a book, but want to buy it. Why? That book will emphasize my social status, that I'm not behind others, that it will attract someone's attention, etc. So our need for status, fame, and prestige manifests in the love of books. Also, you will agree that the more intense the love, the more you will enjoy life. As long as we love that book, as long as we long for that book, we experience sweet moments. When we get what we want, we also experience a fleeting pleasure. Indeed, the joy of Vusal is quickly forgotten, but it still makes us happy. In any case, love gives us pleasure when we long for what we want and when we get it. Life without love is uninteresting. But there is a problem. Immediately after the pleasure we experience in the moment of sensuality, a bitter anger fills us. There is an emptiness, even disappointment. Was it worth all this trouble? Because after meeting the desired object, one realizes one doesn't need it. Focus on wants and needs instead of being disappointed. Is it better to take a look? If love and pleasure are directly proportional in our lives, then the abundance and intensity of love increase and strengthen our enjoyment of life. We innately want to be loved constantly and increasingly. We need a love that will not become a nuisance after the wedding. There is no denying that our desires are at the center of our lives, but it cannot be understood as a simple formula of we want, we do, we don't want, we don't do. Since our wants and desires are infinite and contradictory, we live by sacrificing our desires for each other. So every human being has a hierarchy of desires. Some desires are fundamental, some are less important, and some are generally unimportant. Based on this categorization, we make choices and decisions in life. It is the same in society. Every society has a value system. Values are the aspirations of society and the goals it strives for. All human beings share the same values, and their differences stem from their approach to these values. For example, if being rich is the highest value in a society, everything is sacrificed for it. Or in a society where honor is considered the highest value, everything is sacrificed. Both wealth and honor are desirable for everyone, but which is more critical varies from society to society. Let us look at another issue. Even though humans have the exact wants and needs, how these needs manifest differs. If one person wants to eat meat and the other wants to eat vegetables, they both want to eat. So when we talk about desire, first of all, we must remember that although everyone has their desires and wants, they are rooted in the characteristic needs of all human beings. If we go deeper, we must say one cannot desire what one does not need. So to control our desires, we must first familiarize ourselves with their needs. Although our desires are infinite, the needs that give rise to them are very few. Psychoanalysts claim that at the root of all our desires lies an instinct the size of the fingers of our hands. Philosophically speaking, in general, man has only one need. Desire is like a tree. It has one root and trunk, but many branches. The essential condition for anyone who wants to make changes in their life is to recognize their wants and needs. It is necessary to keep a notebook and report yourself daily. It is also an enjoyable process. After all, one begins to see oneself from unknown perspectives, sometimes fearing oneself, sometimes doubting oneself. What can be more interesting than knowing yourself? And if the path to happiness starts with knowing yourself, what could be more important than that? Self-awareness means seeing the needs behind the desires. Let's calculate with ourselves. Everyone can replace the examples given with their desires. I want to graduate from university soon and get a diploma. I want to get a high-paying job. I want to marry someone. I want a loving family. I want to have many friends. I want to have a car. I want to look good. I want a kind boss. I want to travel the world. I want delicious food, etc. This list can be continued indefinitely. Now, let us consider what needs lie behind these desires. If all these were independent needs, those uneducated, unemployed, and without family or friends would be unable to live. Because not meeting every need, such as hunger and thirst, leads to death. Or imagine a society without education, career, and tourism. There are also such associations. Would we still want all these things if we were there? Of course not. All these things are not vital, but a superficial expression of some of our deeper needs. I want a diploma to increase my chances of getting a good job. I want to get a good job and be rich. I want to be rich so I don't go blind. I don't want this car. I want that car so I can show my high social status. I want a high status so that I can be powerful. Even when we examine the things we don't like, we see that we return to the exact needs. I don't want a coworker because he overshadows me, which makes me a failure as an employee, and my respect and income go down. I am afraid of so-and-so because they can relieve my shame. As we move on, we will see that to enjoy life, one needs to be robust, needy, loved, etc. wants to be lead. When we look deeper, we can see that behind all needs, there are deeper needs. For example, what does a person need power for? The answer is simple, and you all agree. The person who enjoys existence avoids non-existence. Through strength, he benefits more from existence, and weakness confronts him with nothingness. If we list the things we don't want one by one and give them a common name, that name is absence. The absence of health, wealth, power, and love creates hatred in us, while their presence creates a feeling of love. We want to enjoy every aspect of existence and be present in its fullness. We don't want anything to come near us. Absence is a limitation, and presence is an infinite possibility. When we want to exist and encompass the whole world of existence, we strive for infinity. But is it possible to escape nothingness? Death, illness, suffering, poverty, and conflict are an integral part of our lives. How can you protect yourself from all this? First, if we need something, there must be something in return. One cannot need something that does not exist. Just as the need for water proves the existence of water, the need for eternity proves the existence of eternity. Our needs arise in our hearts because they are met. At the root of all our desires, there are other needs besides the need to exist eternally. Let's go back to our superficial desires. For example, when we were children, we wanted to have a toy, and our interest in it died after we got it. Years later, when we see the person we were madly in love with when we were young, we sometimes laugh and say, "Love is blind." When the new model of the car we dreamed of comes out, our dreams are shattered as if they never existed. In other words, desires die with a vengeance, and we feel sorry for the energy and time we spend realizing those dreams. We blame ourselves, but why don't we understand the meaninglessness of our desire? When we want something, we overestimate it, and when we get what we want, we find that our imagination has deceived us. This fallacy aside, the fact of perfection and idealization proves that man loves perfection. Yes, his ghost deceived him, but with what? With an existing demand. Man needs perfection. He needs the pinnacle of being as well as being. It is not enough for man to be strong. He needs the infinity of strength. It is not enough for man to be constantly loved. He needs his love to increase continually. One needs pleasure as well as its constant intensification. These are both natural and necessary. This is the essence of man. Unfortunately, centuries of false moral propaganda have made people afraid and ashamed of their nature. Not wanting boundaries was understood as arrogance, desiring eternity as greed, and pursuing power as Pharaoh. How can the needs born in a human being be evil? How can the needs determining man's existence and development work against him? It is the greatest immorality to set limits to man's desire for infinity and perfection. One limited it by religion and philosophy, another by law and morality, and the third by economic and social concepts. Actual corruption does not stem from the desire for infinity and perfection, but from the willingness for finitude. One becomes a lousy man if one is content with small and temporary pleasures. This is clearer from the perspective of love.